Okay, there we go. Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Are you ready to reach for the stars? Tune in to The Lost Wanderer, the #1 monthly podcast on good pods in astronomy. Join our host, Jeff, as he takes you on an interstellar adventure to explore the mysteries of space and the wonders of science. From rocket launches and distant galaxies to the latest discoveries in astronomy, each episode is a thrilling ride through the cosmos. Don't just gaze at the stars. Come explore the universe with us. Follow The Lost Wanderer wherever you get your podcasts, and let's discover the stars together.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of He Said, She Said. I am one of your hosts for this evening, and with me, as always, is the very awesome Rowdy Rick. How are you doing tonight, Rick?
I was doing better until the gremlins came back again. I already had to fight them off once today. I'm going to have to call my internet provider and be like, what the hell? You told me the new equipment would fix this, and it hasn't yet, so we got to figure it out.
Yeah, there's a lot of gremlins going on, not just at your house, but apparently on Next, too. So, yeah, it's
Those aren't gremlins. Those are hooligans.
Yeah, true. Okay. Yeah. Nice differentiation. Yeah. So outside the gremlins, everything going cool?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Having a lot of fun learning how to generate better graphics and stuff. So kind of starting the next level of things a little bit. So having fun, which is kind of where the inspiration for the graphic came from tonight, because you texted me and we're like, we should talk about the people that we want to meet when we go to Purgatory. I'm like, speak for yourself. I'm not Catholic. I'm not going to Purgatory.
Okay. I aspire to go to heaven, but let's face it, I am imperfect. And that whole grudge thing, that may cause me to stay in purgatory for a while.
But that's just it, though. You guys are like the Christian version of the Jews. You got the guilt thing down, man. You're like you're automatically assuming that you got to go somewhere to work through your ish. I would like to remind you that verse when Jesus is on the cross does not say, I promise you that verily you will be with me in heaven someday once you go to purgatory and work through your ish. That's not what it says. So I refuse to call the guy whose words are in red a liar. He said this day. you will be with me in paradise. If anybody deserved to go to purgatory, it was probably a thief. And Jesus didn't say, you'll be with me in about 200 years or so once you work through your ish. But you made it, so congrats.
Okay, all right, fine. We can just stick to heaven if you want to. As a matter of fact, most of the people that I picked, I think only one is actually really in heaven. I mean, for sure. Like she got her ticket like way young. So I'm pretty sure she's there.
Well, I mean, that's the whole fun part about the graphic, though. And the whole, I mean, this is the dynamic of he said, she said. You said one thing, I said something else. Now we get to still figure out how to make it work anyway. Because, yeah. But
okay.
Besides, you already said you have an unconventional list, and I was like, that's probably explaining why you're saying you got.
I do. Some of the people that are on my list are people that most people would never put on their list. So, because my list is not about. There are no religious questions on my list.
Oh, I'm sure.
So I didn't.
I'm sure they're on a list. Just may not be the list. Just pointing that out.
Yeah, maybe. So, but yeah. So this today has been kind of interesting. We had some news about the Nobel Peace Prize. Yes, I said that correctly.
Yeah. You're letting your Puerto Rican slip out. That's not how we say that word here.
That's how I pronounce it. But it was funny because I was looking at all the news on social media and everything, and everybody was so upset on one side and everybody was laughing on the other side. And all I could think about is like, why would anybody want this prize? It has absolutely no meaning anymore. I mean, and everybody can say, well, they gave it to, President Obama before he did anything. And then he ended up blowing up like 6 countries. I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm talking about way before that. When they gave it to Arafat, I was pretty sure that was the end of it.
Right? Yeah, nobody even talks about that. Because I was like, dude, you gave the Nobel Peace Prize to Yasser Arafat. But the irony of Barack Obama getting it 7 months into his presidency isn't even the fact that he then, bombed several countries. He killed American citizens on not American soil.
Yeah, everybody forgets that little tidbit
after getting the Nobel Peace Prize. So okay.
So yeah, but we're not talking about politics. We're talking about something more. I wanted something more uplifting because everybody, at the end of the week, you've had it rough. You're dealing with politics all over the place. Maybe a few telenovelas that are either personal, like in a DM group, or that are like going on because you follow a certain celebrity, or an actual telenovela that you're following, like As the World Turns or General Hospital. So we thought, hey, why don't we talk about something that's more fun? And I remember a book that came out by Mitch Albom called The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. So I was kind of inspired by that. I've never read the book. And I know my mom read Tuesdays with Maury, and I think she read The 5 People You Meet in Heaven as well, but she seemed to enjoy it. But I wanted to, if you had a chance to go talk to anybody and meet up with them over in another plane of existence, like heaven, who would you pick? What would you ask? Or why would you want to pick that person? I mean, what would you want to talk about? That kind of thing. So that should be kind of fun to explore.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it should be. I mean, I already have a few people in mind. So.
But yes, Orty, Egyptian dude. Oh, and he got rich off of it because when he died, his widow inherited $80 million or something like that. I'm talking about Arafat, by the way. So I guess we can jump right in if you want to, unless you want to talk about something else first.
No, I mean, I really don't have anything else to talk about. I just figured I'd let you go first because we got to go from the bottom to the top here because you're starting in purgatory. So.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Either. Can we just say another plane of existence? You know, kind of like when what's his name? Wesley left the Enterprise, and the mom says, keep warm on those other planes of existence or whatever. And all I could think about, you had the opportunity to kill this character off in justice and you didn't take it. But anyway, moving on. I really don't like Wesley. Never have.
Nobody likes Wesley. The only character, and it's funny because I'm going to steal something Amish said the other day, so I have to give him credit for this because I was thinking the same thing as he was saying it. The only character that I have ever enjoyed watching Will Wheaton play was when he played the character on The Big Bang Theory, because he basically played himself and he got ragged on the entire show. So I enjoyed that one.
All right. So I guess starting with me, I think my number 5, Orty might appreciate this one. I think Orty will appreciate this one because this is something that has bugged me since I read about him when I was about 15. And there have been many legends about this guy. They wonder what happened, would love to find and everything. DB Cooper.
Oh, see, that's a good one.
I really would love to talk to the guy and say, okay, where the hell, what happened? Where did you land? What did you do? Did you spend the money? What happened? Because nobody knows. This is on the level of Bermuda Triangle in the middle of the Rockies type of shit. So for me, it would be really cool just to sit down. And you know what? It's not a judgment zone or anything. I just really want to know, how did you manage to do this? Where did you end up? Did you, change your characteristics? Did you, change your identity? Did you leave the country? Did you do this? Did you do that? At the time, you could literally leave the country, go to another country, assume another identity, and you could just become somebody else. Nobody was going to track you. There was no DNA. There was no, digital fingerprints. There was none of that. There was nothing like that. So it would be cool to talk to him about his escapade, how he managed to get away clean with that much money and where he ended up, because it's a mystery that for some reason refuses to be solved. So that would be my number 5. And of course, me, I'd be like, but why didn't you do this? But I mean, did you, how did you what did you do with your hair? How did you manage to do this? I would be asking all of the minutiae that would drive most people nuts. Like, you land in the middle of the Rockies or where'd you go to the bathroom? Like, did you take showers? Did you did you bathe in rivers or creeks or brooks or whatever? How did you survive? What did you eat? Did you go all, revenant on people? What did you do? There's no trace. There's nothing. So that would be my number 5. And I would have a lot of questions. I would have, you need to draw me a map. You need to draw me a diagram. You need to list everything that you did. How did you manage? Did you, and if he did manage to leave the US for another country, what did you do while you were there? Did you marry? Did you have kids? All of those things. I want to know everything, all of the minutiae, that kind of thing. That would be my number 5.
Nice, Andrew. DB Cooper was Loki. I think you mean DB Cooper was low key, maybe. Oh, wait, sorry, my bad. That was a terrible dad joke moment, but I own it. All right, so I actually have a tie for my number 5 because I couldn't decide. I tried, I really did, but so the first one who landed in my number 5, and I'm curious if anybody's even going to know who this is, John Newton. Any idea who?
I know Wayne Newton and Isaac.
Yeah, a little before their time. John Newton was born in 1725, lived until 1807. He was an English Anglican clergyman, hymn writer, and former Atlantic slave ship captain who became a prominent voice against the slave trade in later life. He also wrote the hymn Amazing Grace.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So the stories like this are what always amaze me is somebody starting on like a complete antithesis of where they end up because dude basically did an entire 180 in his life. And it wasn't, I mean, it wasn't even that he found faith later. He he was already a clergyman and everything else and was still, a slave ship captain. And eventually he just was like, yeah, no, we can't do this anymore. So that would be one of the things I would love to talk to him about is how as a person of faith did you eventually realize that you couldn't do this anymore to what is in fact another human being? So that would be probably the only question that I would start with because it would become a heavenly version of the show Inquiry because he would answer that one question and I would just keep going from there based on his answer. So that's my first number 5. My other one, because I'm really into history. John Adams,
That is an excellent pick.
born 1735, died 1826. He was a lawyer, revolutionary leader, diplomat, political theorist, second U.S. president from 1797 to 1801, and vice president from 1789 to 1797. Born in Braintree, now Quincy, Massachusetts. Graduated Harvard 1755. Rose as a prominent attorney. Was best known in his early law life to defend the British soldiers after the Boston massacres in 1770, basically stating that they deserved a defense on the principle of law. You can imagine how popular he probably was doing that. He was a delegate to the Continental Congress, key advocate for independence, authored Thoughts and Government in 1776, and was the principal architect of the Massachusetts Constitution. It was written in 1780 and actually was a model for the U.S. Constitution. He was a diplomat, served in France and the Netherlands, secured crucial Dutch loans with Franklin and with Franklin and Jay, negotiated the Treaty of Paris in 1783, ending the Revolutionary War. Vice president and president, and as Washington's vice president, shaped Senate procedure, presidency marked by the XYZ affair, and an undeclared quasi-war with France at sea, signed the controversial Alien and Seditions Act of 1798, also strengthened the Navy and kept the U.S. out of full-scale war. And I could keep going. So for everybody who thinks I work too much, I ain't got nothing on that guy.
Guess not. Wow. Yeah. There were some, obviously, founding fathers that I thought about and everything, but I'm pretty sure they're all talked out up there. So I'm just going to stick to the unconventional. and I am. And there's a couple that are personal. I reserved one slot for just people I know in real life and why. So there's several in that slot, but that's that's one number. So I guess number 4 now?
Yes.
Okay, so my number 4 is Nikola Tesla.
Oh, see.
What? Is that bad?
Well, that was my number 3, but
see, yeah, we're our brain together. So I just want to sit down with him. And honestly, I'm all about the mundane. There are so many things that we don't know about people that are famous. We don't know, like, what was his favorite tea? What was his favorite thing to read about? What kind of music he liked? What inspired him to actually break the bounds of, science and technology and invention? What set the spark? That's what I want to know. I know he created so many things that are so far out there that we still don't understand. And I get that. I'll never understand it. That's for sure. My brain doesn't work that way. But I want to know the minutiae. I want to know what inspired him. What was he looking at when he came up with the coil? What was he looking at when he, was thinking of the filament and for the light bulb? Those kind of things. Those things, I I want him to spill the tea on Edison. I really do, because I'm sure he's got opinions. What about you? So, go ahead and skip to 3 since it's Tesla, and then you can, or do you want to just wait on yours?
No, hang on.
Okay.
It's on a different page of my notes, so hang on. Yes, I have notes for this one because I was like, I'm too tired to keep this crap in my head. So, I mean, you hit on a lot of it. I think one of the biggest things that I want to talk to him about is where and how he came up with the idea of wireless electricity, because that should have been a game changer for everyone. And yeah, so that's one of my biggest things. I mean, so just to kind of go over, in case you didn't know, he actually invented the remote control.
Mm-hmm.
First successful use was on a radio-guided boat, Madison Square Garden, 1898. He tried to build a global wireless powered telecom system. So he was definitely ahead of his time, because we pretty much gotta have that now.
He, there were some things that he kind of reminds me of Jules Verne. The things that Jules Verne imagined and brought to life in his books, we did not achieve until decades after he wrote about these things. It was the same thing with a book called I want to say Looking Backward. I forget who wrote it, but the writer actually brought out all of these things that were going to be in the future, and we have them now. The concept of the intercom, the concept of sound surround, just those kind of things he wrote about in that book. And that was a dystopia that was written way long ago. So for me, Tesla was the same way, except he would envision something and put it to practice. He had the connections in his brain to where he could bring that to reality. And so that connection he had to get inspiration from something. And that's what I want to know about. All of the inventions are so way out of my pay grade. I mean, they're so far, they're over my head. But I want to know what inspired them, because sometimes it's the smallest thing that will spark your imagination, and that will lead you on to a certain level of greatness. And you never know what it is, but for some people it's something small. For some other people it's like a friend of mine, she was inspired by a blow dryer, and she came up with the concept for an engine. And I'm like, from a blow dryer? She's like, yeah. And it was the heat, the exhaust, that inspired me to do this workaround for her physics thing. And I was like, okay, whatever. I don't know. She won some kind of, some kind of medal with, I don't know. This was back in the 80s. But, you get inspiration from whatever's around you and everything. But I just want to know what inspired him, because the leaps that he took were so gigantic.
Well, so he, the thing about it is, he has these big leaps of things that he's invented, but then there's other things that you don't really realize, that the part of he was one of the reasons why we have them. So the neon craze in the 50s, and then again in the late 80s, early 90s, guess who's responsible for neon lighting? That guy. Yes. Now, with everything else that he's done, nobody really ever thinks, this guy is right up there with Edison and Marconi, and he's also the father of neon lighting. So it's just one of those things where he's one of those people. And again, it would probably start a lot I would probably ask him one question, with how your brain works and the things that you came up with, what gave you the idea to invent neon lighting? And then just kind of see where the conversation goes from there. Because I could probably spend about 1,000 years picking that man's brain. Not gonna lie.
It would be a very interesting, thing to cover, because seriously, I'm just like, there were so many unanswered questions when he died.
And yeah, in case you get there first, Wait for me before you ask him to spill the tea on Edison, or you have to share with me when I get there. One of the two.
I'm going to be a stenographer. I'm like, I need to learn how to do shorthand because it's going to take a long time. I know he's going to be talking for a very long time. So, so anyway, so that was your 3,
Yep.
and
So my number, well, actually, my 4, 3, and 2 were all tied together, but I'm gonna go back to my 4 now, and then we'll let you do your number 3.
Okay.
My number 4 is Art Bell. See, Marconi Radio, Art Bell. He was a late night talk radio pioneer, and he actually, even before Rush Limbaugh, got me into talk radio because when I got started really getting into talk radio, I was working nights all the time, so that was pretty much the only thing that was on, unless you want to just listen to music all night. And I was one of the, because I used to fall asleep listening to a radio, so I couldn't drive at night with the music on. It had to be voices. Voices would keep me awake. So I found Coast to Coast in the mid '90s. I actually found Rush Limbaugh first, but I found him on TV. I didn't start listening to him on the radio until several years later, when I wasn't working nights all the time, or when I actually started running my own company that had to be up during the day too. But yeah, so a little bit about Art Bell. Again, he was the creator and host of Coast to Coast AM and Dreamland, the template for paranormal and high strangerless radio. So kind of the godfather of what Amish and I do, usually every 2 weeks on Juxtaposition. He had a very signature format, including open phone lines after midnight, respectful, curious, interviews on UFOs, pretty much sci everything, cryptids, time travel, government secrets, plus open lines that made callers the stars. He had a career arc that started really young, ham radio kid turned DJ. He was a medic for the U.S. Air Force during the Vietnam era, moved into talk radio in Las Vegas, then syndicated Coast to Coast AM late 80s, early 90s to hundreds of affiliates at its peak. He actually became a cultural phenomenon for a lot of stuff. Actually, there were a lot of cultural moments built around him. He actually was the on-air hub for the Phoenix Lights in 1997. Champion of the Area 51 lore, John Teeter, Time Travelers, Saga, remote viewing episodes, and countless first-person encounter calls. Coverage of Heaven's Gate in 1997 sparked national debate about media and fringe topics. He also co-authored several books, The Coming of the Global Superstorm, which eventually became a movie, with Whitley Strieber, which inspired the film The Day After Tomorrow, released interview collections and anthologies tied to the show. Later projects, he did multiple retirements and returns, brief Sirius XM run on the show Dark Matter 2013, launched Midnight in the Desert in 2015 as a streaming affiliate hybrid, lifelong ham operator as looks like W6 Oscar Bravo Bravo, broadcasting from Pahrump, Nevada. Then it goes into a lot of his personal stuff, like his first wife, Ramona, died in 2006, remarried Aaron Ruiz Bell. But yeah, so one of the people that have inspired me to do what I do, and actually he was my gateway into talk radio, and eventually got me listening to folks like Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck and everybody else. So anyway, so
he was an interesting character. I'll say that. I think
dude,
one time
seeing him on the X-Files kind of tripped me out. I was like, wait a minute.
I remember I sometimes I have insomnia, and one time I was having insomnia and there was nothing on TV. So I just decided to turn on the radio, and it was the local AM radio station that normally carried most of the talk radio and stuff and everything. And Coast to Coast was on. And I'm listening to this going, is this for real? Am I tripping? What is going on? I had no clue because I came in late. So I had to extrapolate what they were talking about. But then it got really trippy, and but it had a huge following. I mean, it was a very popular radio show, and I was talking about it with a friend, And they looked at me, it's like, oh yeah, it's a great show. I'm surprised that you hadn't heard about it before. I'm like, I live under a rock. I do. I live under a rock. And so that was the first time that I had heard about him. And he was very, he was out there, but in a kind of cool way,
I don't.
you know?
Just for the record, I don't know if anybody who basically went to school to learn how to dig through rocks can complain about living under them.
I know.
Just pointing
It's
it out.
a paradox. But there you go. Yeah, I thought it was, really cool. When I talked to my friend about it, and he loved listening to it. And at the time, you couldn't pull it up on YouTube, you couldn't pull it up um, you know, on the internet or anything like that. So you had to catch it. You had to stay up to catch it, and I think it came out like at midnight or something. Where I was at anyway. So, but it was entertaining, and the weird way it made you think. You did not expect that, but it did make you think. So, yeah, true pioneer. Pretty cool guy.
Yep. Bit of a nerd, but kind of awesome at the same time. Just saying. Just saying.
Hmm. So, okay, so I guess my number three, right?
You're at number 3.
I'm at number 3. So, my number 3 is somebody that I am Catholic, so obviously I admired her a lot. And growing up, she was the epitome of what women in our faith aspired to be. We knew we would never get there because this woman was so giving, so selfless, but she was our inspiration. And that was Mother Teresa. For, growing up, understanding the sacrifices that she made to help people in such a devastating part of the world, knowing that she was not going to get anything in return. She was just there to give. And that was something that growing up as a Catholic or growing up as a Christian, you learn about the gift of giving and how you're supposed to be selfless in your giving. And she was the epitome of the example when I was growing up. So I would love to sit in her presence, to ask her how she managed to find the absolute patience and devotion that she did. I'm a very patient person. Everybody knows this. There have been times that I'd be like, yeah, okay, I can wait. That's not a problem. It drives some of my sisters crazy, especially when, like, at Christmas time, I'm in no hurry to open anything. For my birthday thing, my mom will send me a package. I will wait. I have forgotten to actually unwrap gifts for my birthday. I've forgotten I've forgotten Christmas gifts that I set aside and completely forgot for weeks to open. So, I'm very patient, but not to that level. And I would love to sit down and ask her where she found that in herself, because it's important. It's something that I strive for. I really, like I said, I do have the patience. I'm still working on the grudges thing. I will admit, I'm still working on my grudges. I can't seem to get rid of those. But the patience thing, I'm pretty good at. The giving thing, the wherewithal to give with everything that you are, knowing that the only thing that you get in return is knowing that you gave to someone else. That for me is something that I have been working towards for years, and I've been getting better and better at it. One of the things that I decided to do about a month ago, I had been struggling with having a lot of furniture in my stash of rehab stuff, stuff to redo and refurbish and whatever. And I didn't have the I just didn't have the oomph to actually start putting it out there and taking it to the store. And one night I was just thinking there, and as I was getting my tithe ready, putting it in my purse, it suddenly hit me. I can start selling this and all of the proceeds can go to the church. There's nothing stopping me from doing that. And it has incentivized me. I already have 3 pieces that are at the store, and I'm working on 2 other sets now to get them ready. So as soon as those start moving, and everything, and my girlfriend has said, yeah, sure, no problem. I'll just cut you a check, and that's, and I actually asked her, can you make the check out to my church? And she was like, yeah, I can do that too. And I was like, okay, let's do it that way, because that way it's anonymous. I don't want the recognition for it. I want to do this, So, so she's working with me to do that. But that is one avenue of giving that I found that I can do, and it actually lifted me. It I felt this lightness come over me when I finally made that connection. And I'm not saying it's for everybody. A lot of people give in different ways. Some people just give a few cans to the food pantry, the local, drop off or whatever. And, you give what you can, and that's great. Some people give time. Some people give money because they don't have time allotted to give. So there's lots of ways to give. And when you find one way to give and knowing that you're just going to be giving and not expecting anything, oh my goodness, your heart just feels so much lighter when you realize that. It's a great feeling. So that is one thing that I would love to talk to her about, to know how she found that within herself, because it takes a lot. It takes a lot of strength of character. It takes a lot of willpower. And I mean, and we're all, we're imperfect. We're all sinners. So for her to actually rise above that for what decades that she was out in Calcutta, and doing all this. And, she deserved it. She deserved the Nobel Peace Prize because she did achieve something that was incredible. So, yeah, I want to talk to her and ask her how to do it. Come on, Terry, tell me the truth. How'd you do it?
You know what she's gonna, you know what she's gonna say, right?
I have a
Woosah.
feeling.
She's just gonna say woosah. That's it.
Woosah. But I've always looked up to her. Mother Angelica was another example for me. Mother Angelica had such a vast following among Catholics, but she had such a beautiful sense of humor. She would laugh at things, and she made Catholicism fun for a lot of people. She brought a lot of people to the faith because of her sense of humor. So she would be another one that I would actually want to talk to. But Mother Teresa, mostly Mother Teresa, simply because of her strength. I would like to know how she found the strength within herself to do what she did.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, if I was interested, I don't know. Mother Teresa's never really been one of those people that I felt like I could probably sit down and talk with. So I can see why you'd want to, though. So I'm not disparaging that at all. I'm just like, I don't know. I didn't even grow up Catholic, and I have bad feelings towards nuns. The whole rulers, and nope. Don't even want to try, because I'd be getting in all kinds of trouble because I'm way too much of a smart butt. I'm just saying. I already know she'd be rapping me on my knuckles while we're talking. Nope. You can't, young man. Anyway. Oh, so that puts me to number 2, doesn't it? I think. No, wait. No, we're at my number 3.
I don't know. I've talked about 3 people, and I think you've talked about 3 people. So yeah, we're at number 2. But
Well, I've talked about. Well, no, because I did. Well, hang on. Yeah. Okay, so that's what it was. So I have another tie again. I have a tie for first, but one's kind of a gimme, but I still want to mention it anyway. So let me see. So I had a tie for number 5. My number 4 was your number 3. So then I did my number, yeah, one, no, something. Anyway, so I'm just running through my list real quick in my head. So it was Bell, then him, and then, oh yeah. So my next one, which I guess would be my number 2, would be Rush Limbaugh.
oh, nice.
Again, radio sandwich because the guy that basically invented radio is in the middle. But and it's funny because I was struggling a little bit today. I came up with a couple on my own, but I couldn't really think of any more. So because I've been working with GPT so much lately, I was like, okay, so you're starting to see the kind of work that I do. You're starting to figure out who I am. So besides these people, and then that's what actually created one of the first ties. Who do you think would be cool people for me to talk to? And I don't even know why. I mean, I already kind of had Rush Limbaugh in my head, but I don't know why I didn't think about Art Bell. And then it started spitting out some other ones that I didn't even think of, and I was like, "Ooh, I could do like a 3-hour show on this at this point," but we're not going to do that. But yeah, Rush Limbaugh, big deal, especially for me. One of the high points of my early career was when a programming director that I was working for at the time actually compared me to him. I don't know if he actually meant it or if he was just happy that my checks cleared. Either way, it made me feel good. But as far as I mean, everybody knows pretty much everything about Rush Limbaugh, but we're going to run through it a little bit anyway. Born in 1951, passed away in 2021. He was a conservative talk radio pioneer and host of the Rush Limbaugh Show, which was a nationally syndicated show from 1988 until his passing. Early life and path to radio. He was born January 12th, 1951 in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, I think. On air as a teen, worked various local stations, a stint with the Kansas City Royals, PR promotions, then broke big at KFBK in Sacramento in 1984 before launching the national show out of WABC New York in 1988. He developed his own signature style and built a culture as he went, had fast comedic monologues, recurring bits, including Open Line Fridays, Excellence in Broadcasting, or the EIB network, and his signature phrase, talent on loan from God. He built the Dittohead community from the ground up and a massive affiliate network via Premier Networks. He reframed daytime AM radio, energized conservative grassroots, and influenced GOP media strategy for decades, inspired a generalization of hosts and the talk news format that I myself currently work in. Books and media bestsellers, The Way Things Ought to Be, 1992, and See, I Told You So, 1993. Later launched the Kids Rush Revere History Series, received multiple honors, including Marconi Awards, received the Presidential Medal of Freedom February 4th, 2020 at the State of the Union, and faced hearing loss, had cochlear implants in 2001, publicly battled opioid addiction, married Kathleen Rogers in 2003. In 2010, announced advanced lung cancer, died in 2020, announced advanced lung cancer in 2020, died February 17, 2021. And the biggest thing about Rush Limbaugh was nobody knew what to do with AM radio anymore.
No.
And nobody even had an inkling of what he was managing to do on his own until he was sitting on one of his shows and started talking about a product that nobody had heard of before called Snapple. And they sold out within like 3 or 4 days. And
no, I think the only thing that you would find on AM radio stations before Rush came along was either country music or religious programming.
Well, and some sports stuff, but yeah.
But the only time I heard that was on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
So, along with the cars thing and gardening, I think. But that was all on the weekend. Most of the daytime, Monday through Friday, was either country music that I heard or religious broadcasting. So, the first day that I ever listened to Rush, was the day of the Oklahoma City Alfred P. Murrah federal building bombing.
Yeah, I remember you saying that before.
Yeah.
See, I hadn't even really started listening to him yet.
That was the first day. And I still remember because I got in my car and my my husband had left the radio on that particular station, and so I turned on the car and the news had just broke about maybe 10 minutes beforehand, and I'm sitting there going, what is going on? And at the time, there was no internet the way we have it today. There were no cell phones the way we have them today. So I just left it on. And of course, I'm driving to work. We were living in Houston at the time, and I'm driving to work and I'm just like, I'm stunned. I get to work and I walk in and I see my manager and she looks at my face and she's like, what's wrong? And I said, and I was just shaking my head and I told her about it. And she was like, no. And she ran to the back to turn on the radio. And then she peeks around, it's like, what station? And so I told her. And so she put on the station. She was back there for like an hour. And she came back out and she was just completely distraught. Could not believe that had just happened.
I mean, I've already given my story on that. I was actually supposed to be in that building that day, and I still never get that, because that was around the time of everything that was happening, and I had given up and was going to apply for disability and had managed to start a little job again at McDonald's. And because I had that job, they called and said, hey, we need you to come to work. And I said, I already put in for the day off. I'm supposed to be applying for disability today. And he's like, I really need you to come in. I'm like, okay, fine. I guess if I've only been here for a few days, and I'll tough it out. And that was kind of my, here's your sign. It was like, I was supposed to have my appointment to finalize that stuff today, and the building blew up. So maybe I'm not supposed to do with that.
We never realize how blessed we are by science. My uncle was supposed to be coming back from Germany, and he was supposed to be on the flight that was blown up over Lockerbie, Scotland. And he missed that flight because his wife could not find her shoes. Okay. So she was taking forever to find her shoes. She wanted, at the time we all dressed up for flights and everything. And he was supposed to be on that flight and he missed that flight. And to this day, he prays daily on the fact that God intervened, and he put, I think that was the day where his life turned around and he started working for, he decided to become a preacher and went in that direction. But it really is amazing. We have signs everywhere and so many people just ignore them.
So that meme that shows up on Facebook every so often where it's like, if for some reason you can't find your keys or this or that or the other, take 5 minutes and breathe once you find them, because God's trying to tell you something. I am one of the people that used to scoff at that until there was one time that I literally could not find my keys, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, because as good as my memory is, never ask me where I put my keys, park my car, or where my wallet is, because if I'm exhausted or in a hurry, I can't remember. And that's always been my thing. Like when I first started driving, I had to park in this. I had different places at different parking lots that I would park, so I would remember kind of the general location of where my car was so I could find it. That's how bad I was about finding my car. But there was one morning and I was going to be late for work and I was mad about it. And it was even before we had moved out here. And so I'm probably 15, 20 minutes later than I was going to be, which put me 10 minutes late to work. I know the math isn't mathing and I should have left even earlier. Shut up, Dad. Just kidding. But so there was a giant wreck on the highway that I'm normally on. And I'm looking at that going, if I hadn't misplaced my keys, and granted, I was even later to work because it was only going to be about 10 minutes. Turned out to be closer to 20 or 30 that day, if I remember right. But If I had left when I was supposed to, I probably would have been in the middle of that wreck.
God.
And I'm one of those people that used to laugh at that meme when, oh, that doesn't, yeah, trust me. Sometimes, especially if it's just out of the middle of nowhere and something isn't going right for you, take a minute and slow down, because it's probably your guardian angel trying to make sure you're still breathing in 20 minutes or so.
Very true. Very true.
Just saying.
So, okay, so where are we? I think number 2.
Yeah, I just did. Well, somehow we got
You did,
around.
yeah, we got turned around because of Nikola Tesla, but you just did number 2, right?
Yeah, so I did my number 2, so now I think it's your turn to do your number.
Okay, so my number 2, and forgive me, y'all, I might just burst into tears because this one is a little personal for me. So I would like to talk to a few people that I miss in my life. One of them, he was a really good friend of mine. He and I graduated from high school together. As a matter of fact, I dated his older brother. And I had known him since, I want to say, 8th grade. Yeah, 8th grade. He was really sweet, biggest band geek you ever knew, and proud of it, but so gifted with musical instruments and very, very smart too. I mean, his parents were professors and they ended up becoming professors, him and his brother both. So he was always such a great friend. And through, life intervening and the fact that I was a military wife for a long time, we were traveling all over the place. We try to keep in touch via social media, but it was difficult. And he found out that he had cancer and chose not to get treatment. He was very much a believer that if fate gives me this hand, then I will play it. So he said, I have cancer, so I'm just going to let it happen. And of course, his wife, who was also a friend of mine from high school, was devastated. But there was no changing his mind. He was one of those people that once he put his mind to doing something, that's what he did. And he died. It was so weird because I got the call from his brother on election night, and we both joked that he probably just didn't want to be around to see Hillary lose. And that's how his brother and I are. We will joke just to relieve from the grief. And but I would love to sit down with him and ask him why he didn't try to I don't want to say that he was selfish in what he decided to do, but so many people wanted him to stick around as long as possible and enjoy life for as long as he could and do the things that he had wanted to do. Instead, he just shut everything off and just stayed home and just waited. He didn't even enjoy the time that he had with his wife. And that was, to me, kind of a weird way to go. And so I would love to ask him that. But I also want to ask him why he never told me that he sent me a carnation for Valentine's Day when we were in 8th grade. He kept that secret all of those years, and I didn't find out that it was him, because that was the only time I got a flower from anybody from Valentine. You remember how they would sell them for like $1?
Yeah.
And you would buy them for your sweetie or whatever. My sister always came home with like a dozen. And I always bought one to give to mom. But I never got any. And one time I got one. And I never knew who it was. And believe me, and I asked because I'm like, who gave me this? I was indignant. I was like, how dare you say secret admirer? And I never knew. I suspected it had been Alan because Alan and I had been good friends, and he was the only one that would actually spend time talking to me, out of all the guys in school. And so I suspected it was him, but I wasn't sure. So I never pressed and I never asked him or anything. But it wasn't until after he passed away that his brother admitted to me that that was something that he knew about, because he had asked him, "Hey, do you think if I get, should I buy Aggie a flower?" And his brother said, "Yeah." Years later, I ended up dating his brother, not him. But that's okay. He wasn't interested in me anymore anyway. So I would like to ask him, why didn't you fess up when you had the chance? I know that sounds kind of weird, but I was indignant. How dare you? How dare you not put your name on that card? I want to keep the memory. I want to know who I want to know who would do something so nice for me, so I could thank them. And I never got that opportunity. And so I wanted to ask him, why did you cheat me of it? But that's one person. Another person that I would like to talk to is my dad. One of the last things he wanted me to do was to take my nephew to Starbase. He wanted, because I've talked about this before. My father worked for NASA in its infancy, and he knew a lot of astronauts that went through the program, specifically the Mercury astronauts and the Apollo astronauts. And so, for him, the whole, space thing was really the love of his life, outside of my mom, I guess. And so he wanted me to take my nephew to Starbase, and I did. But by the time I got to Starbase, he was already he was not conscious anymore, so he didn't know. I did tell him all about it, and I took pictures and everything. And I would like the opportunity to go up there and tell Dad everything that my nephew did while he was up there. All of the questions that my nephew had, everything about SpaceX. We took him on a tour, we took him on this, we did that, we did everything. And I think my dad would be very happy to just have that conversation, because that was the last thing he asked me to do. And so I would like to, report back. I had a dream about my dad not too long ago, and it was echoing my brother's dream as well. And I thought that was kind of weird. My dad was in a guayabera, and I'm not sure if anybody here knows what a guayabera is, but it's a specific style of shirt. Has embroidery running down on each side of the front, and it's very cool. It's kind of a semi-formal shirt, and it's worn in tropical areas. It keeps you cool. It's very stylish, and I am proud to say that I took some of my dad's guayaberas with me when I was putting his things away, and he was wearing that, and he had a fedora on. And I was cracking up, because my dad owned one fedora, and it was a Tom Landry hat. Okay. Nice. The same pattern. That is the only time my father has ever admired anything remotely connected with football. Tom Landry's hat. He had to have one.
Nice.
And, so
Tom Landry was the boss back in the day.
Yes. Well, he had the hat. It was the hat. So it's still at home, by the way. I'm going to abscond with it next time I'm down there. But he was wearing a fedora, and he was wearing his guayabera, and he was sitting there, and he was just smiling. And I'm just like, that is so weird, because my brother had a similar dream. My dad was wearing a hat. My brother did not describe the hat. He just said he was wearing a hat, a guayabera, and he was sitting on a park bench, and he was enjoying the sun and smiling. And
it sounds like you guys are being visited.
I think we are. But that's one thing that I would love to do, is just sit down with my dad and tell him all about that day, so that he knows for sure that I did do that. I did do the last thing that my father asked me to do.
It's because you're a good daughter. Everybody knows this. All right. So in the vein of if you get there before I do, I have a question I want you to ask your father for me. You ready?
Okay. Uh-huh.
¿Por qué nunca le dijo a su hija que era una espía?
I think you want me to ask him, ¿por qué nunca le dijiste a su hija que usted era un espía?
Yeah, I'm a
Close
little
enough.
rusty.
Close enough.
You got the gist of it. I'm a little rusty.
I did, and it's really funny because my mom is still receiving condolence cards and all that stuff from people that my dad knew and people my dad worked and everything. And last time I was down there to paint that big behemoth in my dad's room, my mom got a couple of cards, and she said, "Oh, this is from so and so," and I was like, "So and so." And she's like, "Yeah, you didn't know them. You were very little. This is he worked with your dad." And she just dropped it. And I asked her, I was like, "Oh, did he work at the factory when we were growing up?" "No, he just worked with your dad." "Where? Like, was he a school teacher? Did he work at NASA?" She would not fill in the blanks at all. I thought that was kind of weird. Maybe there is something going on that I don't know about my dad.
I'm telling you. You thought I was kidding. I'm telling you.
Well, I don't know. My dad may have done some like clandestine stuff. Who knows? But yeah, I would love to have the opportunity to at least talk to those two. I mean, definitely my dad, obviously. If I sit down to talk to either one of my grandmothers, I'm not going to get a word in edgewise. And all they're going to do is like bitch about everything that's going on. So I'd rather avoid that. I don't think I could talk to my grandfathers either, because my grandfathers would probably be avoiding my grandmothers for all their worth. So I couldn't possibly find my grandfathers up there. There's several cousins, there's several aunts and uncles that have passed. So maybe I would hit those up too, but for sure, at least my friend and my dad, because those are still unanswered,
Yeah, no, I get it.
So, all right, you're up.
All right, so I have 3 number ones technically. One was already mentioned in the chat. One's kind of a gimme, and the other one, as soon as I get back to my notes, because I was too busy working on trying to make you laugh in Spanish. Glad it worked. And so my official number one, and then my 2 honorable mentions. James Madison.
Oh, that's a good choice.
Yeah, I really want to get from the horse's mouth exactly what gave him the idea for the Federalist Papers, because everybody argues about the meaning of those things and what exactly they were for. And so, yeah, I mean, not only that, he was kind of known as the father of the Constitution, co-author of the Federalist Papers we were just talking about, 4th U.S. president from 1809 to 1817. Ideas in drafting, he led the Virginia Plan at the Constitutional Convention, core architect of our checks and balance system and the separation of powers, principal force behind the Bill of Rights in 1791. Again, co-authored Federalist Papers with Hamilton and Jay, wrote key essays on factions, number 10, and structure, number 51. Oversaw the War of 1812, post-war period, spurred a stronger national identity and institutions. He blueprinted American constitutionalism, limited government liberty, safeguarded by structure, not just virtue. So he's pretty much the original minarchist.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and I would love to sit down and talk to him about that concept too. Like, especially if we haven't figured it out by the time I get there. I'll be like, how can we get these kids to give us a government we can drown in the bathtub? Because it's way too big right now.
It has
It was. Voight actually started his role as the Reaper today, and I'm kind of happy about that. I've been griping about that for for like 10 days. I'm like, they should have been in at like 12:03 on shutdown day.
Oh man, and this is something that we've always. I know we're sailing into politics right now, but you did bring up, James Madison, and so every time the government would shut down, isn't this what we wanted? Oh, please start firing people. Please just get rid of people. There is no reason to have these people. Obviously, they're not working.
And then the left is all like, this is terrible. What about the working people? I'm like, dude, this is what we voted for. We can't afford the size of our government anymore. But anyway, I know I opened the door with Madison, so it's my fault. But
but there's one faction is like, oh my God, we're all gonna die. And the other faction is like, this is what I voted for.
Right.
And the sad part is, I know I have a lot of friends that work for the federal government. I have relatives that work for the federal government. I have relatives in the military. That kind of thing. And I'm just like, I want to be sorry. I do, but I can't be. I really can't. So I don't know.
All right. So my first honorable mention for the evening, Al's already mentioned in the chat, the prophet Ezekiel. I really want to know exactly what he saw in his visions.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
Because the Bible does a pretty good job of explaining it, but I just want to hear it straight from him. How exactly did that Valley of the Dry Bones thing work, my dude? Because I got questions. The whole Gog and Magog thing. What exactly did you see? The new temple and river. I really, really, really want to talk about that one. But yeah, so that's my honorable mention number one. And of course, and I'm pretty sure that he's technically on everybody's list, but after we've gone through the whole, reading of the charges, because I anticipate the first part of heaven is us having to basically answer for everything that we've ever done. And there's going to be two ways it works. Either Jesus is standing next to God saying, yeah, nope, that's covered. Or Jesus is going to say, I don't know you for that one. I'm sorry. And that's going to be bad. But so as soon as all that's done, which for me might take a while, I'm not even going to pretend that it won't. I would love to talk to him and be like, how in the world did you do everything that you did, knowing that you could have just taken yourself off that cross at any moment and just smote anybody you wanted to? Because I'm really, really glad it was him and not me, because I don't think I'd have been able to do it. Knowing that I could have just got myself down, healed myself, and just snapped and everybody exploded, I don't know if I'd have been able to do what he did. I have questions. Not to put too fine a point on it, but I have questions because I know I couldn't do what he did. I couldn't do it.
There's so much that they did that I can't even conceive of doing. I just can't. Do I have any honorable mentions? I have one. It was an interesting one. Hunter Thompson.
You mean Hunter S. Thompson? Or
yes.
Another
Thompson? No.
Okay.
Hunter S. Thompson.
Just making sure I'm the right person. No, that's fine. I was just making sure there wasn't somebody else. But yeah, that's a good one though.
His life was just so wild that, I would love to sit down and talk to him and ask him, dude, it was a total wreck. What incentivized you to just be a total wreck? I would like to know the thought process behind his wreckage.
Dude, so I honestly want to know what gave the dude the insane idea to hang out with Hell's Angels for a year.
Oh man, yeah, that's
why?
Or totally. I defending your life. That's what I view it as. He gets 9 pies.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make you 9 pies. Oh my god, I love that movie.
Nice.
But yeah, I think talking to Thompson would be very eye-opening, because there's some things that I can't make work in my head. The thought process that he had, the wherewithal to live the life that he did, regardless of the consequences. He just didn't care. I'd like to know why that level of carelessness existed within him. So it would be an interesting conversation, I think. So, yeah. So
Yeah,
who would what?
No, I was just gonna say I still can't wrap my head around the whole, I decided for fun to go hang out with some Hells Angels. But
I know
the
it's kind
whole
of weird.
but the whole him, embedding himself with the Rolling Stones kind of makes sense now. I mean, if you can hang out with the Hells Angels for a year, you can run with the Stones.
Oh, yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. So who would be your number one?
My number one was Madison.
Oh, so you did number one.
Yeah, because
Okay.
remember you did your number two.
Oh, I haven't done my number one. That's right. I did
Yeah,
honorable mention, but not number one.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're the one that needs to do your number one. Remember we flipped when
Got it. Okay, so my number one is, this one was kind of like a no-brainer for me, because he gets such a bad rap. Christopher Columbus, who sailed the ocean blue in
F that guy. He's
1492.
Italian.
Huh?
As somebody who's part Irish, I can only say F that guy.
Well, yes, but see, without him, I wouldn't be here. So I would like to ask him what it was like to set forth on a voyage, not knowing where you were going to end up. I want to know how he reconciled that, because he was a man of faith, for one. So I want to know how he incentivized his crew, how he kept his crew from, going insane, how he managed and when he did arrive at that destination, I would like to know what he felt. We have our national anthem in Puerto Rico speaks of him. And in Santo Domingo, there is an entire museum devoted to him and his son, because his son actually came and lived in Santo Domingo. And so we view Christopher Columbus in a totally different light. Now, that woke shit that has been here about Indigenous Day and all that crap, that's starting to seep in Puerto Rico, and I don't like it. I do not like it. I have people in my circles down there that are now starting to question whether or not Christopher Columbus was a good person. And I'm like, Puerto Rico would not be where we're at now without that dude. Okay. I mean, that's it. You cannot escape that. So for you to actually say he didn't do us any favors while you're taking money from the federal government is kind of hypocritical. But I don't want to go down that road. I just want to be able to talk to him and ask him how it felt to go, because he came, he discovered the New World, and some of it. And then he went back, and, he was shamed before the court. He was excoriated. They took away everything, all of his achievements, all of his successes. And, they declared that Amerigo Vespucci had actually done the discovery, and all these things. They took away a lot of the stuff that he had achieved. And, that had to have affected him in a huge way. But you don't read about it. You don't read, what was, what happened. There's not a lot there to, to read about or discover, his thoughts and all that stuff. His writings are available in Santo Domingo. I believe that's where they're at, if I recall correctly. And I had one opportunity to go, and thank you, COVID, I couldn't go. But that is my number one. I would like to ask him all of these questions, which we have taken for granted. We have always extrapolated our history from the point where the discovery of the Caribbean islands, and the setting forth of Spain, and the Cortés in Mexico, Cabeza de Vaca over here, and this guy over there, and Ponce de Leon, all that crap. But it wasn't possible until this guy took a chance. So that's something that I want to know. I want to know everything, and how he reconciled with the fact that, a lot of people don't know, but he did try to help the Taino population. He did try to intervene on behalf of the populations of indigenous people that were in those islands. And, he was shut down because of that. And that was part of the problem, I think, whereby the crown actually took away his claims and his successes and transferred them to somebody else. So, he wasn't, in my opinion, I don't think he was a bad guy, but I don't know his complete story because it's not really readily available to everybody. And that's why he's not my number one.
It's there, but you kind of got to find it in bits and pieces. So
Yes.
we all know how we're taught about it in school. Everybody at the time thought the world was flat. Columbus was going to prove that it wasn't. That's not accurate by Columbus's time. They knew the Earth was round. They just misjudged the size of the Earth at the time. So most of what Columbus was trying to do, because and this one's pretty prevalent in conservative circles, another conspiracy theory is that Spain was being overrun by Islam at that point. So by him sailing where he was, it was to try to find ways to go strike the heart of Islam. The problem is that doesn't track because Islam was actually pushed out of Spain. What remained accurate, though, was the rise of Islamic states, such as the Ottomans, who were actually squeezing Europe and cutting off spice trades and everything else, which was why he was trying to reopen trade routes so that the European continent wouldn't be strangled out by the Ottoman Empire. But he misjudged the size of the ocean. He thought it was smaller than it was. He also misjudged the size of the continent for China, Eurasia, and because he thought it was much bigger than it was. So he thought it was going to be a much more manageable trip. And because he misjudged everything, he wound up in the Americas instead. So there you go. But yeah, all the stuff that he gets a bad rap for, it doesn't. I mean, that's just because there's kind of like the hippies have done with Christianity. They've made the natives in the areas where Columbus landed peace-loving, kumbaya, tree-hugging hippies, when in reality, most of them were actually still cannibals and shit. So.
Well, yeah, the Taino population had an issue with the Carib population. The Carib population was a bunch of cannibals. So with the Taino were the food source. So there was a lot of contention in that area. And the intervention of the Spanish actually helped with that situation. There are no, if I recall correctly, there are no pure Taino left. We're just descendants of the, what?
Because they hate them.
But I still, one of the things that's irking me, it was a lot of people over here, specifically in areas that are populated by large Puerto Rican groups in liberal cities such as New York, do not understand that we do not call ourselves Native Americans in Puerto Rico, in Cuba, in Santo Domingo. We don't, that term does not exist there. And so they do say, we have Native Americans that live in those islands. And I'm like, no, we don't use that term. It drives me crazy, but that's for another story. It's for another day.
So, I mean, it sounds like you're just getting mad about another version of Latinx, and I really don't see what the problem is.
Don't get me started. I just think it's kind of funny that, I had somebody screaming at me that, we in Puerto Rico, we have Black and we have Spanish and we have Native American. No, we don't. We don't have Native American. We have Taino. We are Taino. And that's like me saying, I'm in Mexico and I'm like, we have Native American blood over here. No, they don't. They have a myriad of different Native tribes in that area. But Native American, that is a term that's used exclusively here in the US. In the US, the 50 states. And the two outside of the continental are kind of iffy because I don't hear them talking about Native Americans in Hawaii. And I'm not sure if they do in Alaska, but I don't think they like the term there either. So, but like I said, topic for another time. So we're up at the top of the hour. I guess we should wrap up. Why don't you tell us where we can find you, Rick?
Well, since you'd mentioned indigenous people in like Alaska and stuff, I have to tell you, and I think I may have shared this story before, but I have to tell you, and I was probably maybe 6 or 7 years old. One of my second cousins actually lived in Alaska. I think I was even younger than that, to be honest. At least I hope so. Otherwise, it's going to make me seem a little more short bus than I like to pretend. And so we're sitting there at Christmas, and this is, we're at my one of my great aunt's houses, and we're doing Eve. It's like Christmas Eve, and we're opening presents. And without missing a beat, I asked my second cousin, who was actually more like one of my aunts, "What's it like living in an igloo?" Everybody died laughing. It's not my fault, man. The only thing I've ever seen about Alaska was cartoons. Don't judge me.
I actually, all of those shows that are on History Channel or Discovery or whatever, like Living in Alaska or whatever, Life in Sub-Zero or, all these things. My dad loved those shows. And I asked my dad, why do you watch these shows? These shows are in snow. I don't understand. You know what he told me?
What?
I mean, we're from a tropical island, right? Which is why I was wondering, why are you watching this? This makes no sense to me. He says, I just want to see what people do in stupid situations. But he loved it. He loved the fact that there was this one guy that was living in a shack in, up north in Alaska in winter. He had managed to get himself a moose, and because it's like 40 degrees, he leaves the moose is up on his roof, and so he'll cut whatever he needs to make his food as winter goes along. And I'm like, why would you do this to yourself? Not that moose meat isn't good. I really enjoyed it. Texas Courtney brought me some, and it was amazing. But I mean, literally, there's one episode where he cuts one of the hooves. He's like, I'm gonna make a stock out of this. I'm gonna get as much meat out of it and do some tacos with it. I have some leftover. Yeah, he's talking about he's gonna make his own tortilla so he can make a taco, and then he's gonna use the hoof and make stock, and then he's going to freeze the stock so that he can use it to make the base for his soups for the rest of the. And I'm like, I can't. I could never do that.
Oh, that new one actually works pretty good with his background. They started this new thing called Air today, and makes kind of everything almost transparent. That actually looks pretty good. I hadn't tested that yet. I thought that was the first when it started acting crazy the first time this morning. I thought it was because it was in the middle of trying to do an update, but then it did earlier. So I think I'm gonna have to call my internet company. But yeah, I thought Andrew had a great point. I also want to talk to Steve and find out what WTF is his problem.
I keep thinking, every time we say fuck Steve or whatever, I keep thinking of that story and everything. I do wonder what happened to him. And I keep seeing him as this young guy because the last time I saw him, it was my freshman, sophomore year
Yeah.
in college. And but I'm sure that he's not young anymore, right? And so I wonder, did he ever marry? Does he have grandchildren? Does he even live around, in Texas anymore or whatever? It was really weird because it was this one guy that I dated briefly in college, and he had a very unusual last name, and he came from South West Texas area, and I was looking for some information. My sister wanted me to help her find a, reasonable Airbnb because she wants to take her entire family for like a weekend somewhere in Fredericksburg area or outside in that area. And so I'm looking at everything, and I see that last name, but it's a woman, and I'm like, I wonder if that's his daughter, maybe his wife. I don't know. And I clicked on the information. It's like, oh, it's got to be his daughter because there's no freaking way that guy would marry somebody like this. She's too young. But I didn't ask. I'm very close to asking, hey, is your dad so and so? But I'm not going to.
That could be a can of worms. Just saying.
I did do that once. My French teacher from high school, he actually married one of my friends from high school as well. This was kept really, really under wraps because nobody knew that they were even seeing each other until she graduated. And then suddenly that summer she's married to him. And I'm like, what? What happened? When did they start dating? And it wasn't until after they divorced because the divorce was imminent. I knew this was going to happen because she was not a nice person. Okay, she was kind of nice, but she was, I don't know, high maintenance, that kind of thing. And so after she was divorced and everything, my sister and I actually saw her at some club that we were at, some, hillbilly club or whatever. And I asked her, it's like, so, how's your son doing and all that stuff. And I said, look, I'm really sorry, but I'm dying to know what happened because I thought you were really happy and everything. And she's like, well, things just happen, so they were only married for like 10 years. So she was, divorced by 28 or whatever. So I decided to look him up like a couple of years ago. I figured, well, I'm sure he's retired by now. I'm sure that he's remarried by now and everything. But I looked him up and, his information came up and whatever. And so I sent him a message and he said, oh my goodness. And he called me by the French name I used in his class. He still remembered. It was so amazing to me. I was like, I can't believe you still remembered the French name that I used in your class. By the way, it was Colette. We all had to pick French names. That was the only name that would come to my head. So that was my name in my French class. And so we talked for a while, and he said, yeah, I've remarried, have a few kids, whatever. I'm about to be a grandfather, all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. I'm so great. When did you retire? He told me about retirement, and his wife was about to retire too. And so they were going to sell their house, get an RV, and go all over the place. And I'm like, that sounds cool. That sounds great, because he actually came from Montreal. So they're planning on going back up to Canada and coming back down and up, down and up, down and up. So should be interesting. They were planning on doing it starting this year. So I'll be
fun times.
Hoping I'm getting some updates, sometime soon. But anyway, oh my goodness, we're still talking.
That's all right. I figured once you started going into more detail, you probably needed a few more minutes, so we're fine.
Do we have anybody else tonight?
Well, no. I mean, I have trust me, I have enough of a list we could have done. I could probably do an entire 3-hour show. So yeah, we don't need to really keep doing that.
No, it's okay. No, we can start winding up. It's all right.
But
Do you want to? Were there any other people that you would like to actually hit up in heaven, like to talk, not actually hit?
well, I mean, I thought we were. I mean, you kind of pretty much earned one of these.
Giggity giggity. Giggity giggity.
We can't do that in heaven, so I knew that one where you were going. So just like. But yeah, I mean, there were a few others. I mean, George Washington would probably be another one I'd like to talk to, just to see if he was really as badass as everybody says. That was kind of a big. Yeah, that one's definitely kind of a big deal. I would like to ask Marie Antoinette what the hell made her come up with the idea of, hey, we're just going to starve everybody. Yeah, that's not what that revolution was about, Chica. Good, not a good plan. So, yeah. What exactly were you thinking?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Those are probably about the last two that really just kind of jump out at me. That aren't,
I think if we're going with historical figures, man, there's so many.
Well, I mean, like I said, I have a ton. I mean, I'd love to sit down and talk to Thomas Aquinas for about a century or so. C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, Billy Graham would be another one I would like to talk to because he basically shaped a lot of the modern evangelical movement. Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher. I told you I have a list of lists. That's why I tried to pare it down to 5 and still wound up with like almost 10. I mean, Harriet Tubman would be another good one. The guy that
would be an excellent one.
And what I would like to do is sit her and the guy that the Uncle Tom character was based on,
Josiah Henson.
Down, Josiah Henson. I would like to sit them both down and compare notes.
Yes, that would would really, that would be it. I wouldn't even say a word. I would just sit there and let them talk. I just want to know. I would like to know that experience. And it, and it's funny because this is something that I have made mention in several spaces before. In the Hispanic community, you have your people of Mexican descent, the people of Puerto Rican descent, the people of Cuban descent, Venezuelans, Colombians, Argentina. We have that identity. And a lot of people say, oh, here in the United States, well, African Americans just have that one identity. And I'm like, no, you don't. And I always keep telling people, it's like, you were sold that bit of goods, but you don't, because the person that has issues up in Detroit is not the same as the person that has issues down here in San Antonio. The culture is completely different. You're not homogenized. And I always keep telling this to people. And this is something that I think would be great to talk to somebody from that era so that we can bring that forward, because a lot of that got lost in translation. A lot of that culture, got lost in translation. I think it'd be great to, let them talk about what they had to go through, what they dealt with, and how they kept moving forward. It just seems like we're not moving forward anymore. And I'm not just talking about the African American groups here in the United States. I'm talking about everybody. Boy, that went dark.
Yeah, I mean, well, you're the one. We need to be cheerful. And then you're like, take this one. So I have a quote from somebody, and I want to see if you can figure out one of the last ones on my list. Bring on the glitter bombs.
Okay.
Made famous for us as part of the outro for Game On with JD and Stacy, but attributed to Andrew Breitbart. I would love to pick that man's brain too. That, and now that he's up there, Charlie Kirk. So those are probably my last actual solid two. And I would prefer to be able to speak to them before I actually died, because I would love to pick their brains and incorporate a lot of what they did. So, but yeah, that was from that was actually he's added to it from his first appearance. The first time he ever said it was "Bring it on, bring on the glitter," and that was in CPAC 2012. So, and then at one point somebody turned it into "Bring on the glitter bombs." So. Yeah, Jeff has a good one. I would want to talk to the man George Lucas offed to see how much of Star Wars was stolen.
Oh, yes.
That's a good one. That's
an excellent one. You know what? I would love to talk to, and I know this, he brings up Star Wars, which immediately makes me think of Hidden Fortress, which makes me think of Akira Kurosawa. I would love to talk to him.
Oh, that's
because that man was such a visionary in the film world, and he was amazing. The way he captured his stories, it was just, I cannot pass up an opportunity to watch any of his films. Even the weakest one of his films is still better than anything that's being put out today. So that would be a good one for me to like. I just hope that there's a universal translator up there.
I'm sure there probably will be. You have to remember, God was the one that made us not be able to understand each other. So, I mean, you got to remember, in Adam and Eve's time, they could talk to the animals, and I firmly believe the animals can still understand us. They're just looking at us, going, "Why the hell can't you understand me anymore? I can still understand you." If you don't believe me, just ask your dog a stupid question sometimes and watch it cock its head.
Archimedes.
Ooh, there's another good one.
Yeah, Archimedes. That just popped into my head. That's another one.
That was a good one.
Now that we're going global.
Nice. Oh.
But yeah, I mean, Archimedes would be a great person to talk to.
Oh, now look, check out Al. Diogenes. Yeah, that would be another good.
Diogenes. There are a lot of Greek philosophers and inventors and writers and all of that. I would love to pick. Well, I can't really pick them. I would just sit there and listen. Let's face it. I wouldn't ask anything. I would just let them talk and absorb everything. But it would be really cool to talk to these people. I would like to know. I don't know.
Oh,
I wouldn't even know who to ask.
Look at Delaney sneaking one in the last minute.
Imhotep. Hatshepsut. I would love to talk to Hatshepsut, the Queen Pharaoh. I would love to talk to her. That woman was strong. I mean, yeah, sure, whatever. Cleopatra was queen. This was Queen Pharaoh, which was totally different. Okay, so I would love to talk to Hatshepsut. She's like, yeah, totally.
Nice. See, now your anthropology side's coming out though.
Yeah, I know. I'd like to talk to the guy. They found in that Piltburn man, and I would like to talk to where we got the term for Neanderthalensis. That guy. I don't think there would be a lot of communication, but it'd be kind of cool.
Lots of grunting.
Well, it is surmised by certain people that Neanderthalensis may not have had a lot of oral traditions, but they did have what they call memories, which meant that there were some things that they were born already knowing, sort of like some animals already have that instinct, they have the knowledge already in them. And there's a section of anthropology that believes that Neanderthalensis also had that as well. But, it's funny because when I was growing up, there were always two camps to anything. Growing up, going to school, there were always two camps to everything. And so far, I would pick the contrarian camp every time. just because I wanted to, but because for me, it also made sense. One of the big things that my professors always told me is when we crossed over on the Bering Strait and came down through Alaska and, and came down into the Pacific Northwest and then went down through California and then went westward that way. And I kept saying, no, that's impossible. And my professor would say, why is that impossible? I said, because of the mountains. And he's like, I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. And I said, look, if you look at this map, there's a mountain right here. You would have groups go around it, but some would go towards the south, others would go around the north to the east. And he was like, no, they would all just take one path. And I'm like, no, because that's not human nature. Human nature, we are very curious people. We want to know what, yeah, everybody's going over there, but what's over there? Seriously, this is how I kept trying to stress this. Well, guess what? We were proven right. There were 2 different paths taken. They have found proof. And so I'm like, damn it, my professor's dead and I cannot be vindicated. So that's another guy I would want to talk to.
Say, that should be somebody you talk to when you get there. You're like, see, I told you. I told you.
I would totally find this guy and says, you know what, we're gonna have a sit down because you were wrong. But that's just the nature.
Well, you know how that
discipline.
You know how that conversation would go, right?
How?
Aggie, we're both dead. Let it go.
Let it go. So, it was just, that Etsy, Orty, they did not take one path from the east to California. There were several paths that were taken. And this is why it would drive me crazy. I'm like, what do you mean there's only one path? There can't be one path. Just like when people came to El Paso is shaped kind of like a U. And there's a reason for that. There's mountains right there. So people would go around it. It just makes sense. Just like there are examples all over the world happening in real time of this phenomenon, but they kept insisting, no, they only took one path. It was the most ridiculous thing. But that was actually in several of my textbooks. And we kept saying, no, human nature being what it is, that's my favorite saying, they're bound to be curious to know what's on the other side. That is part of how we explore. We are at heart, we're explorers. And we get to one place and we're already wondering what the hell's on the other side of it. That is what makes us human, that drive, that curiosity. So no, we would not just take one path around the mountain. We'd go both ways. Anyway, yeah. True. So yeah, I would definitely talk to this professor if I were up there. And yeah, you're probably right. He would probably say, just please let it go. I want my tapioca. All right. Well, okay. I think we've talked long enough.
Well,
I think we should.
We owed him about 10 minutes anyway, so we've only gone over by like 12. But yeah, I think we've done the topic justice. So,
all righty. Okay. Well, okay. So next, I'm going to ask you again, Rick. Where can we find you?
Don't look for me. It's a trap. Just kidding.
It's a trap.
Well, you can find me after the Red River rivalry, probably back on X, either celebrating or cursing, depending on how that game goes. And then I'll be hanging out with the Amish one tomorrow night for spooky season here on KLRN Radio. Spooky season for juxtaposition means Juxtober. And every Saturday night in October, we do a very special episode, usually on a theme. This month's theme is cryptids, so we'll be doing that tomorrow night. Luckily, the Front Porch Forensics crew has learned how to produce their own stuff, so I get to just go hang out in the chat for that one mostly and kind of hang out in case they need me for something. So, and then after that, Sunday night, I'll be back doing the first in a new series for Kingdom and Country. Basically, the death of the innocence of children, especially and specifically in America, is kind of the theme that we'll be talking about over the next several episodes. And the real reason why I think that's going on will be explained throughout the series of episodes. And then Monday night, America Off the Rails. Tuesday night, back doing Manorama with the usual crew, including usually the Amish one, VC, otherwise known as Vincent Charles, some usually random Canadian guys, and occasionally an actual space alien when we can get him to appear. And then Tuesday morning, Tuesday through Friday, Rick Robinson show. After that, everything pretty much starts over, so just feel free to go check out the schedule. You can also find me on X at RadioX73. You can find the station, which you'll notice has a gold check mark now, and I gotta say, gold looks good on us. At KLRN Radio, and you can find me as a contributor at misfitspolitics.com, twitchy.com, theloftsparty.com, and I also produce the Lofts Party podcast, which typically drops on Tuesdays because, I don't work enough or nothing. How about you, Aggie? Where can folks find you?
You can find me at Aggie the Bar Babe. Scratch that. That's my moniker. My handle is Aggie the Barkeep. That's where you can find me. You can find me 8:30 p.m. Eastern Tuesday nights doing the Cocktail Lounge with the ever suave Brad Slager. 8:30 p.m. Eastern Friday nights doing He Said, She Said with the awesome you. The second Tuesday. I'm really tired. The second Wednesday of every month at 8 p.m. the guys get together for Toxic Masculinity, and I bring the drink of the evening. And Jeff and I, on the first Monday of every month at 8:30 p.m., host Spirited Books, where we review books and match a libation to each book that we read.
Yeah,
That's about it for me.
Why don't you tell them about your most recent read? What was that one like? What was that one like?
Oh, that was awful. And it's apparently a trend. I had no idea that this crap was being written and women were like falling all over this. Shoe on Head just reviewed one of these types of books. And it was, if you have 30 minutes, you got to go find it. It's on her YouTube channel. And it was the most hilarious review.
Why are you listening to someone named Shoe on Head? That was your first mistake.
She's great. She's funny as hell. But I was like, I had no idea that this was a trend. I had no idea that this was so big. This one of these types of books that I've reviewed for Spirited Books has over 20,000 5-star reviews, and I don't understand why. But she breaks it down for you, and she tells you exactly why. But I'm just like, wow. No,
I know the answer.
Centaur love. No.
I know the answer.
No, it was Minotaur.
I know the answer. Are you ready for the answer?
Huh?
The reason those books are so popular is because people are retarded.
I guess so.
Say good night.
Anyway. Good night.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. I'll have this one up in the morning, and then, like I said, the other stuff will be up probably by Sunday. Go check us out on Spreaker. For some reason, y'all love us over there again, so go check us out over there. Bye, guys.